Hey preschool friends, it's me, Mr. Ethan. How are you today? I'm excited to keep reading our book, The Biggest Story, where we learn more about the whole Bible being one big story that's all connected and it points us to Jesus. Now remember, we've been talking about how the main theme, the big idea of the Bible is God teaching us about himself and God teaching us about who we are and his plan for all of creation. And we talked about how God made the first two humans, Adam and Eve, and he put them in this awesome place to live called the Garden of Eden, where there was tons of food and it was awesome. And he made humans to be in a good relationship with him. That's how we were made. The purpose for your life is to celebrate God and be in a good relationship with him. We all disobeyed because Adam and Eve disobeyed. There was this snake, the spiritual being, the Satan, who tempted them, and they disobeyed God. And their disobedience broke their good relationship with God because we can't be around God when we have disobedience. He's perfect, and we can't be around his perfectness with our disobedience. The consequence for disobeying is that we die. Not just that our heart stops beating, but that forever we're separated from God and his goodness. Now, God made a promise to Adam and Eve that one day, one of Eve's kids was going to crush that snake and make it possible for us to be forgiven, for us to have a good relationship with him again. And the rest of the Bible tells us the story of how God is doing that. We meet men like Abraham, who God says, hey, Abraham, you're one of Eve's kids, and one of your kids, he's going to be the Savior of the world. I'm going to make the Savior come from your family. And we meet King David, who's one of Eve's grandkids and one of Abraham's grandkids. God says, hey, David, you're the king of all of my people, of Israel, Abraham's family. And one day, one of your kids, he's also going to be the king, but he's going to be the king who's the king forever. And he's going to save everyone from their disobedience. He's going to make it possible for anyone who trusts in him to be forgiven and have a good relationship with me again. And God makes promises and God keeps promises that we will be able to be forgiven of our disobedience. We see that all throughout the Old Testament. So today we're going to pick up the story in chapter 8 of our book. We are going to finally learn about when the snake crusher, when the Savior, Jesus, when he comes. So let's start reading. Here's a really cool picture that helps us think about what it might have looked like when Jesus was born. It says, after all those ups and downs in the Old Testament, a lot of Israel not being very obedient, they disobeyed, but God was always faithful. We come to a manger, which is like a thing that holds animal food, in a little town of Bethlehem. This is where we meet the new Adam, the child of Abraham, the son of David. It was with the stinky shepherds and the singing angels where we see the real deliverer, the real judge, the real conqueror, our Savior, the one God promised, the snake crusher. No one understood it completely at that time, but when Mary pushed out that baby, God pushed into the world the long-expected prophet, priest, and king. God gave his people a new law, a new temple, and a new sacrifice. Best of all, he gave his people a new beginning, just as he had promised. And then I have some pictures about when Jesus was a kid growing up and some of his disciples, his followers. Of course, some things were different than people expected. The stable with the animals and the scandal with the unmarried Mary were surprises to most people. Jesus' miracles, or fixing things in only a way God could, were remarkable. Jesus' teaching was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. And the bumbling band of hand-picked disciples, that was curious. Here's a picture of Jesus' disciples. All kinds of just different dudes that Jesus picked to be his followers. But the biggest surprise to everyone was that the chosen one of God was chosen by God to die. They're thinking, what? I thought the Savior of the world was supposed to save us. Why did he die? What was up with that? It just didn't seem right that the one destined to crush the head of the serpent would be crushed himself. So when Jesus, the Christ, the Son of the living God, died on the cross that Friday afternoon, it seemed a shocking evil beyond belief. What happened? Here's a picture of some of the sadness that people felt. Here's a picture of the cross where Jesus died. Because remember, Jesus was born a baby, and all the way God, all the way man, and he grew up. He lived perfectly. He never disobeyed the way you and I have, and he died in our place on the cross. He took the death, the punishment that we deserve, even though he never disobeyed. He took the punishment for our disobedience. But it was also the best thing that could have ever have happened that he died. Why is that? Well, just as we would expect from God, and just as God planned it, we break promises, but God keeps his promises. We run away from God, he comes to us. We suffer for our disobedience, so the Savior, he suffered for us. Here's a picture of the stone in front of the grave where Jesus was buried, and then the stone being rolled away. Because remember, Jesus came back to life 3 days after he died. One story is the story of God doing what we can't do in order to make up for us doing what we should not have done. Jesus suffers for our disobedience that we might have his life of not having ever obeyed. That we might have his life where he never disobeyed. Sorry, my tongue got tied. So deliverers are born to die. Things fall apart so they can come together. God kicks his own people out of paradise and then does whatever it takes to bring them back again. We see that Jesus, who never disobeyed, died in our place so that we could be forgiven of our disobedience. Because what's so amazing, and what we'll talk more about next week, is that Jesus didn't stay dead. Jesus came back to life. And because Jesus died in our place and came back to life, we can be forgiven of our disobedience. Now, boys and girls, that is good news. And I want you to trust in Jesus. If you have any questions about what that means, talk to your parents, or call me, or call Miss Sandra. We would love to explain to you what it means to follow Jesus. Bye, guys.